Writing from the soul is the mother of all invention, and 21 Grams is back for another season of this exploration. We will look into the artist and the art they create. Except, this season we're adding the questionnaire, invented by the great Bernard Pivot, to go even deeper. They say 21 grams is the weight of the soul, and this show is the scale. So now here's your host for 21 grams, Joe Compton. It's so funny. Every time I see the graphic, I realize maybe I should switch the two people because I'm always on the side and then I'm on the other side. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 21 Grams. This is Joe Compton. I am your host, and I have the awesome pleasure of having us joined by AJ Mullican, who you can see is written. It's about as well as we were discussing off the air. There's a lot of these books out, and a lot of them coming. So this is the foray into what is to come for the AJ Mullican universe, right? So, as I always do with this show, I like to start off by allowing my guests the opportunity to tell us a little bit more about themselves, whatever they want to talk about. So the floor is yours, AJ. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you can see, I've written a couple books here and there, and I just really enjoyed the process of getting the story out and having people read it and enjoy it, and I'm really getting into a lot more productivity. I've started kind of tandem writing where I write parts of different books at the same time so that I kind of get more done. We'll see how that works as time goes on. Right now, I'm still sane, so you know. But yeah, I aside from this, I work a regular 40-hour a week day job. I do the SCA, which is Society for Creative Anachronism. So I do historical reenactments, and I'm pretty active in that. And so that takes up a lot of time. So you'd think I wouldn't have time to write, but I don't sleep. So
literally,
just about.
Yeah, we've had conversations at like 4 a.m. before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anita's here. Hello, Anita. Nice to see you. Yeah, I kind of wanted to get the ball rolling talking about this past year, because this past year was really interesting for you. It was probably, would you say honestly, it was your most adventurous year, but also your most profitable in terms of being an author and putting yourself
Oh,
out there?
absolutely, absolutely. There were some books that came out end of 22, early 23, and even into the end of 23. It was just a handful of books that came out but they did well enough that it kind of doubled, tripled, and then some. My previous years, royalties and page reads on Kindle Unlimited and things like that. I went from having, I think, 300,000 Kindle Unlimited page reads at the beginning of the year to like 800,000 just this
That's
year.
amazing.
And that's without having some months where it kind of dwindled quite a bit. But yeah, it's been a kind of crazy thing. Just going through and seeing how everything's changing and how everything, I don't think I'm changing that much, but the books are getting, a little more notice than they
Yeah,
had been, some of them.
I'm curious, from your perspective, because this is certainly a conversation that happens a lot amongst us indies, especially, and that is, what is it? What is the formula that works? Is it the 20 books to 50K? Is it the genre? Where do you feel like for you it has turned? Has it been the volume, putting out more volume, or do you feel like you
I think
found an audience and the audience has kind of carried that for you?
I think it's a combination of things.
Hmm.
I wrote uh, a sapphic fantasy romance duet at the end of last year, beginning of this year, or the end of 22, beginning of 23, that has carried on with almost no marketing on my part. It's just people are word of mouth and reading it and finding it on Amazon, I guess. Um, but the my latest one, Call Me Bunny, that came out. It's had a lot of really good reviews and a
Hmm.
lot of really good, and they've both been kind of risks for me, like genres I don't normally write in. I don't normally write sapphic. I don't normally write dark. I don't normally write fantasy. So it's kind of like going out of the comfort zone a little bit into a new subgenre, a new genre, and just trying it out and seeing how it goes and having a lot of fun with it. That's the key is I have as much fun as I can with it while I'm doing it. And I think that really comes through in the work. People see that I'm enjoying it because the books they're enjoying them. So.
That's awesome. Last time we spoke on 21 grams, which actually was a couple of years ago now. I was
Mhm,
looking back at it. We talked a little bit about how you were starting to build kind of your own little world and kind
mhm,
of connecting the dots of all these books together in
mhm.
subtle ways. How has that been for you? Are you still on that road? Do you feel like that's still the roadmap for you, or
Oh, I'm still working on the Nowhere World. I put out another book yet last year in it, and there'll be two more novels coming out this year, plus
mm,
a prequel novella that will, be in an anthology for a while, and then once the rights revert back to me, it'll be free for people to read, and they can say whether or not they like the world, and then they can kind of jump in.
nice.
So I'm still working in Nowhere. I've also got other worlds going. There's the Zelenite Mates book. I'm on the second one of those. It's alien romance. So that's had some good reviews as well. And then a lot of standalones, contemporary standalones, and just kind of working bits and pieces in here and there and filling in where I can.
Mm. You've tackled some interesting subject matter, and you've tackled it in interesting ways. And for you, is there limits? Do you have taboos of your own? Do you have niches that you will not touch? Because it seems like that's where things started to turn for you, is when you decided to just let loose and do whatever you felt like you wanted to do.
Oddly enough, there are some areas that I won't go into. I don't dig underage sexual activity.
Uh-huh.
That's an ick for me, so I don't write it.
Mm,
Generally, I mean, occasionally it happens off page for the most part, but I try not to write that. And things like the more traditionally taboo, incest and
mhm,
things like that. I don't generally write those either. I don't write a lot of the dark non-con that kind of romance
mhm,
where people were getting beat all to crap, and they still go for this person even though they beat the crap out of them. I don't dig that. It's not my personal thing. So I
mhm.
just write things that I enjoy writing, and I kind of let loose a little bit. I kind of like, let's see where the tentacles go. Let's see where the alien, anatomy goes, and run with it. And it's been a lot of fun, kind of just coming up with these crazy ideas and just going with it.
Do you feel like, as far as craft goes and being a writer, that has kind of swung the door open a lot more for you? Do you feel like you're a lot more free? Do you feel like your writing has benefited from that mindset?
Oh, absolutely. Even though not every book that comes out does better than the last, every
Yeah.
book that comes out does better than like the last year or the last couple of years. Each year I'm improving, and the books are improving, the reception of the books is improving. So I think it's just a matter of finding my people. There's a TikToker named Why Choose Mayhem who has mentioned several of my books in her TikToks. And with the Call Me Bunny, she like listed all the tropes and kinks I had put in there. And I was watching this TikTok like, wow, there's a lot in there. Oops. No, I'm not sorry about it. But it was just that I hadn't realized there had been so much in there that people, may see as, "Ooh, this is something I wanna read." So I took what she had, put it in a graphic, and now I use it as my shopping list for, promotional posts. Like, if someone's like, "I'm looking for a dark romance that's got X, Y, and Z," I'm like, "Well, here is a list, you know, of
Yeah.
what this book has. Give it a shot, and see where it goes."
Is it a challenge for you genre now? Do you feel like testing yourself in other genres is where the challenge lies?
I'm kind of doing some more testing. I'm writing a sapphic, paranormal romance,
Mhm.
right now. That's kind of just going up on Ream at the moment. I've
Mm.
joined Ream, so I've got a couple of books on there. The Zalanite Mate second book is going up chapter by chapter, up there as well for the subscribers. And I'm working on just some co-writes. I'm doing a lot more co-writing than I was before. But that's an interesting process too, because every
Yeah.
author has their own process. So you've got to learn how you mesh with all these different personalities and writing styles and be able to meld yours into theirs so it's not this jumbled, disordered mess of, well, this chapter reads like this, but this chapter reads like this. When I wrote with Angelique Jordana, who you've had on the show, or one, I mean, one of your shows before, when I wrote Hunting Woods with her, another author friend of ours read it, and he's like, I can't tell who wrote what chapter.
That's awesome.
And that's an accomplishment, because
Right?
you got two different personalities writing what's going to be a cohesive story, and you've got to make it meld, and we somehow managed to make it work. So
Yeah, writing with others is something that, is a challenge for a lot of authors and a lot of writers but also I think a lot of people go into it thinking it's one thing and it turns into something else. Have you kind of found that as well? Do you find like are you surprised by either the ease of it or the way it's gone for you?
no, but I'm kind of picky about my co-writes. I pick people that I get
You've
well
read
with
before.
personally.
Uh-huh.
One of my co-authors is a real life friend of mine who I just said, "Hey," she's written a nonfiction book before and been published. I'm like, "Well, let's try writing something together." And she wrote the first chapter, and I was blown away. I was like, "Now I got to keep up," because she did a really good job. And I told her that I'm like, "I was blown away by your chapter." I'm like, "Now I got to up my game."
I it, I find it fascinating the space that you habitate a lot in your writing. I've seen this with other romance writers, in, or paranormal romance, and whatever. I mean, I don't want to box you up, but I've seen this with other writers where, especially in the romance aspect, the really good ones, the ones that you find that you gravitate toward, that extend past just romance, right? Just not the tropiness, not the follow there's that, and people make a great living at doing that, and I'm not disparaging that. But what I find is the ones that go beyond are usually straddling two lines. They're not ever like going full adult, because you started kind of in the YA space a little bit and you've dabbled with YA a bit, right? And
Not really.
no.
My stuff is all pretty open door.
Okay.
There's not a lot of closed door in what I write, and even the non-romance stuff sometimes has little scenes here and there. No, I don't relate to YA. I didn't do well in high school and those years, and I don't relate well to it. I'm like, this is a terrible time. Why would I want to be writing about life at this time? No, 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 no.
Okay, that
So
being
I
said, yeah.
yeah.
Well, that I mean, but the thing about like what I'm trying to talk about here though
Mhm,
is a little bit more of the story being paramount for you. Do you
mhm.
find like that is really what it's about and the genre kind of lays in there with it, or are you fostering a genre to kind of create a story around it?
I'm a very chaotic pantser, so I come up with an idea or I find a cover that I like and I'm like, yeah, we'll go with this. And then I kind of start with chapter one and just blah, 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 until it's done. And sometimes I surprise myself, and sometimes I'm like, well, I didn't know this was going to happen. Okay, here we go. And you just kind of follow the story along, and it's strange the way it progresses because I don't plot out a lot of stuff. I have a general idea, but
Mhm.
a lot of times it ends up like way off rails. And with Call Me Bunny, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna end. And then it all tied up. And I'm like, well, that was nifty. And so, it's great when it works out, you know?
Yeah. Uh, do you what are some key elements for you in terms of what a romance has to have, or what your books have to have? Is there something that you look at that you go, okay, I think this is a story I can run with, or because I'm sure you've written stuff that you haven't finished or looked at,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm.
so I'm curious, is there something that you find commonality wise that you will lean on to make sure that you see this through?
I try to make sure there's a solid plot in there to structureize it,
Mm,
I don't want to just throw this person here, smoochy, 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 done, Um, try to work together the HEA, the happily ever after, make sure everything works out in the end for the romance
mm,
books. So that even if it takes a couple books to get there, things end up on the brighter side.
mm.
Um, because that's a very key element in romance. A lot of
Yeah.
people will say it's not a romance if there's not an HEA or at least a happy for now, Um, so I try to stick to those key components. But yeah, definitely try to have a plot that it can work around so that they're not just sitting there doing the romance thing and they're done. I mean, not that I haven't written one that's pretty much straight romance
Yeah.
or two, but definitely I try to put something in there, some kind of conflict that's not necessarily related to the romance that they have to work through in the process of the romance that they're doing.
Take me back to the first time you decided to write a steamy scene. Did you have a lot of trouble with it? Did you find it, or did it come very natural to you? Were you surprised at how it came to you?
I didn't really have trouble with it. It was weird having other people read it and analyze it because my first book and my first book had steamy scenes that were really graphic in a
Mhm.
violent nature.
Yeah.
And so having people read that and be like, tone this down, and this for some reason this works with the story. I don't know why. I don't like it, but it works. So that was interesting, and I've long since gotten over the oh my god, my mom is reading this to edit it. You know, um, funny story. I had sent her one that had some tentacle scenes in it, and the next book was a contemporary romance, and she's like, well, "Where's the tentacles? It feels weird," you know. Because my
So
mom's
you
got a
get
good
used
sense of
to it.
humor, so she goes with it, and she reads it for the story too. She
Sure.
looks at the story while she's doing the editing, so if she doesn't like it, she'll tell me. But she generally, thinks the stories are pretty good, and that's and I try to write her the cleanest. I'm so OCD. I try to write nice and clean, not requiring too much editing
Mhm.
drafts. So, she'll come back and like I fixed like 12 things, but here you go, and it's like go both through and fix it.
Mm.
Um, but it works out.
I mean, at this point, you're like, So what did you think?" Right? That's basically what
Yeah, well,
you're aiming for.
she usually tells me when she sends it back, "I like the story," or, "It wasn't my thing, but it
Mhm.
worked," or, whatever her honest opinion is of it, when she sends back the edits.
Yeah. So, I mean, now, like you said, you're kind of numb to the idea of whatever anybody's going to say about it and stuff.
Mhm.
But do you feel like at this point where you're at now is one upping yourself a goal, or do you feel like it doesn't matter? If do you are you looking at what you've done before and go, "Oh, I did that in this book like 4 books ago. Maybe I should change it like this." Have you run into that aspect of it yet for you?
I don't know that I'm really trying to one up myself.
Mhm,
I'm just trying to go with what is available to me, what I'm given, what the muse, is like knocking on my head with.
mhm,
Uh, I wouldn't say I'm trying to one up myself. I'm definitely trying to, always trying to improve my craft. I mean, that's kind of a given. You don't want to just copy paste scenes from old books, change the names, and here you go.
yeah,
That's kind of a cheater's way out. I try to think of new ways to word things, new ways to uh, new scenes to put in, something to keep it fresh so it's not
mhm.
just stale, repetitive, the same thing over and over.
At this point, are you thinking about your audience too now that you have established one? Do you think a lot about what they might enjoy?
I hope they enjoy the new nowhere books that come out, the ones who've read them. I hope the ones who enjoyed my fantasy sapphic romance will enjoy the paranormal sapphic romance.
Mhm,
There's going to be a paranormal sapphic romance in nowhere books. The last one that's coming out in October, that one will be sapphic paranormal romance. Not just the reverse harem that I've had in there, or the one, some male on male or male
mhm,
female. It's going to be a little bit of a mix up. But I think the nowhere crowd, the people who read the books, like a little bit of variety because that's how they started out, was the variety of different
mhm,
kinds of characters. Um, but I'm hoping that the people who like books X, Y, and Z will like the following ones. The Zalanite Mates books. A lot of people really like those. We're looking forward to the next ones that are coming out. I've already got a few pre-orders on both of them. Um, so that's good. That means there's a handful of people who read the book and said, "Oh, I want to get the next ones when they come out." So
nice.
you know,
It's an interesting dichotomy, right? Because it's like we all aim to have fans. We all aim to have readers. That's what we do. That's why we do it, right? That's why we put it out there. Otherwise, we would just be writing for ourselves, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, that's not authoring, in
right?
in the sense of the true sense of the word. But then when you get fans and fans start to voice how they feel and what they think, and they come after you and they start to say things about like, oh, you did this or you already did this and stuff like that. It's an interesting tightrope that you have to walk a little bit,
Mhm.
right? Are you feeling that a little bit right now, or do you feel like, you know what, shut up, I'm just going to do what I want to do?
I'm kinda gonna do what I wanna do. I don't read a lot of the negative reviews too much,
Uh-huh.
um, 'cause it kinda messes my mental health a little bit, It's like, "Oh,
Sure.
well, this person thought
There's
this was
that too,
total
right?
crap,"
So mhm.
"Well, there, I'll just quit, bye, I'm done." I don't I don't like it doesn't make me feel, good. I'll read the good ones, and
Yeah.
I'll read the bad ones at times, but, sometimes I take them with a grain of salt, like, "Okay, this person clearly does not like the genre I wrote. I don't know why they're even reading and reviewing it because of the genre the book is, but and then I still haven't gotten one of those magical one-star reviews where, it's so horrible that you use it as marketing material. Every once in a while an author gets one of those, like this book
Yeah.
was too smutty for me. I couldn't stand it. It was all smut. And it's like, aha, it's completely all my marketing materials right now.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, the genres. It seems like, and I've had this conversation a lot. This has been the theme of this show for the entire season. It seems like you mentioning your audience is pretty much going to gravitate to something you write for the most part. has genre come up in the conversation, or has it been? Have you found it really doesn't matter as much as you might have thought it might have?
I don't think it matters as much as I originally thought.
Hmm.
I am one of those rare authors who does not have a pen name for every subgenre,
Right.
that they do.
Yeah.
It's me across the board. Um, am I surprised sometimes when something contemporary like Call Me Benny does really well when normally I write paranormal? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, this is not my usual wheelhouse," and all of a sudden it's doing really well. Um, the fantasy sapphic, it was something not in my wheelhouse, but it does really well. I I guess it just, some things transcend genre,
Yeah.
Maybe there's people out there who are like, well, this is my normal gig, but I like the writing style, so let me give it a shot. Or maybe they're completely separate audiences, and that's okay. You can like some of my books and not other ones. You don't have to like all my books. I've had friends who are like, this just isn't my thing. I'm like, okay, don't buy it.
Yeah.
It's cool. You know, you do not have to, I know a lot of authors are like, "Oh, please buy my book, please buy my book," If you don't like it, you don't have to read it. If you read the blurb and you're like, "This doesn't sound like it's for me," that's cool. I'm not gonna like shove my book down your throat and be like, "No, read it." You know me, so you have to read it. No, or you've read my other books, so you have to read this one too. That's not the way I work. If you think you might like my other books, try it. But if you don't, it's okay.
You
You
mentioned
know?
mental health, which is a real big subject matter for you.
Mhm.
Are you still finding you're sprinkling a little bit of yourself and what you've been through and who you are into the books even now? Now that you've kind of written quite a few of them.
Oh, yeah, Bunny is a sociopath for sure. She does not get those societal niceties and cues necessarily.
Mm,
Um, Bunny is, she's a little Harley Quinn-esque, I've had readers say, where she
mm,
just kind of, off her rocker a little bit and just swings baseball bat wherever it may land and, or shoot whoever's in her way. And that's just what she does. But she's got a good heart. It's just her societal, relations to how things are supposed to work just is broken.
mm.
It just does not work.
That's awesome. And it's I mean it helps when you attach yourself to something a little
Mhm,
bit too, right? The
mhm.
the craft takes care of itself in that respect a little bit more. I find. Is that kind of how you find it too? You like you feel like there's an ease, a little bit more ease to
Right,
that scene and writing
it's a
that.
little easier to write the scenes that you can relate to. I am
Yeah.
not saying that I'm a sociopath, but
Right.
it's a
No, no,
little
we're
easier
not saying that here
relating
either, everybody.
it's a little easier writing the scenes, when you understand some aspects of what's going on in the scene.
Yeah.
Um, writing the interactions, the interactions between the characters, the personal interactions, writing all that. You've got to understand your own personal interactions between you and your friends who have similar personalities to these characters. You're like, okay, well, I've seen people who are like X character and Y character. I've seen them interact. How do they interact? How would my characters then interact? It's a lot of
Mhm.
observational work.
Mhm.
Um, because like they say, a lot of authors are people watchers. I'm not necessarily. I don't necessarily sit at the mall and just stare at people and get all creep them out and everything, but I do try to notice the interactions that people do around me and draw some of that in for inspiration and for ideas.
That's awesome.
Mm.
Uh, I would imagine too that there is an advantage to being a pantser in the space that you've occupied, especially in the steamier aspect of it, because I think like a lot of times, romance, and I'll just say it's sex and things of that nature are exploratory. They're improv a lot.
Mhm, mhm.
There's a lot of, you go with the flow aspect of it sometimes, right? I mean,
You don't always say, "Honey, after dinner at 6:30, we're gonna
yeah,
go
yeah.
to the bedroom, for 45 minutes, and then I gotta feed the cats," or something. It doesn't. No.
Yeah, yeah, and our bodies don't work like that either.
You're
They're not
right.
smart. Uh, but, do you feel like, that's a really great way to write those? And how much of that makes the page? I'm curious. Do you write a lot? Is it more of your more exploratory writing? Do you feel like that's the most descriptive writing you do, and that you have to pare that down, or have you is it more exact for you?
I I don't necessarily pare it down. I usually, add bits and pieces as I go back through
Wrap it up.
self-edits, but I'm very much write my way through it. I'll edit as I
Mhm.
go for the most,
Uh-huh.
off and on, but for the most part, I start at chapter 1, I end at the end.
Mhm.
And then I go back and I fiddle with stuff, and if something needs rejiggering, I'll rearrange a chapter here or there or add another one. But generally, my weird it sounds weird to say OCD is a pantser, but my OCD makes me have to start at the beginning and work my way to the end until I'm done.
Mm,
Um, like my OCD cannot write a scene out of order. It doesn't work. It's like I can't write the scene because I don't know what's happening in between yet because
mm.
I haven't written it.
Do you find you're spending more time on the romance elements versus the plot elements, or do you think there's a happy balance, a happy medium, or do you feel like, that yeah, I mean, is that
I
is
try to balance it. I try to balance it. It depends on the book, honestly. Ones that are obviously more plot based,
Mhm,
I put less of the romance in.
mhm,
Ones that are more romance focused or steam focused, I'll put more into there than the plot and make the
mhm.
plot kind of work towards that. Um, it just depends. It's a case by case kind of deal.
Nice. Vanessa's here, and she says, "I am also a very linear writer too. I tried writing one book about, it was so stressful."
It's so stressful. It is so like, if you are a linear writer, you can't just go like, I've had people say, "Well, just write another scene and come back to it." No!
So
I
how are
can't
you
do it.
doing? How are you doing the dual writing then? Do you look for a spot to stop, or
If
have
I get
you?
stuck on one project, I just skip to another one.
Yeah.
And usually one of the other ones will be flowing a little better for me, and I'll get that going, and then, I come back to it, I'm like, "Oh, okay, now I can kinda do what I need to do on this one." I mean, I focus mainly on the one that's got I call it the doest of the ones, the ones in the closest deadline, and then I
Yeah.
kind of branch out from there. Okay, what's the next deadline? What's the next deadline? Let's work on these other ones here in and out and what have you.
Mm,
And that seems to, for me, work. But it's not for everyone. And yeah, they just like Vanessa just said,
yeah.
you can write in multiple manuscripts at once, but they've all got to be written in order. So I'm not writing a scene out of order. I'm writing it in order in a different book.
Right. No,
So
I get that aspect, but
yeah, so
more.
it still works.
But it's juggling.
Yeah.
And you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that you're really trying to juggle two at a time for the most part,
Hmm.
or
Or
writing
more.
or more. Uh,
Yeah.
and so there is a nuance to juggling too. So,
Hmm.
and so, as someone who's an exploratory writer who writes, basically stream of consciousness till stream of consciousness fades a little bit, even in your OCD, and I would especially think in the OCD nature, it's even more so of where to start and where to stop. When you
Hmm.
stop, are you finding you're able to ease the brakes a little bit more, or do you feel like it's just a matter of it stops and I'm just going to go to the next thing?
It seems to be working for me for now.
Yeah,
Whether I'll continue doing it that kind of pace and that kind of manner, it remains to be seen. Because it's kind of been an experiment the past 6, 8 months or so for me.
yeah,
But it seems to be working for now, and I think I'm gonna go, with what's working for now and let that flow and let that go. And you know, I'm not trying to stress too much with it. I'm trying to ease my stress by giving myself a little more cushion between deadlines and then allowing myself the time to work on the projects as my brain will let me in between.
yeah, sure. Do you find writing one story and then going into the next story helps you with the other story? Do you feel like writing that way is kind of helped you kind of either momentum wise, maybe mentally wise, do you, or even practically wise, even craft wise, do you feel like there is a benefit for the other story that you're writing, because you write the one story and you go into the next story kind of idea? Do you feel like that there's been a benefit for that in your writing?
I don't know. It may have,
Hmm.
but I just, as long as I can keep the characters straight, and I'm not trying to write an alien who doesn't understand English in a contemporary, story, I think it works out. Um, but luckily, my characters tend to have full personalities built in, so I don't feel like I'm mixing them up when I'm writing the
Hmm.
different stories at the same time. I wrote the first Al Night Mates book alongside Call Me Bunny, which is contemporary,
Hmm.
and the covers are even similar colors, but I managed to keep them separate as far as the worlds and the characters and everything and the plot points, so that it seems to be working. Yeah,
Hmm. For anybody, I mean, it's really hard to see with these little ones here, but right
yeah,
under AJ's name, "Call Me Bunny's" the one at the right there in the middle there.
yeah.
So, and you can see you have a really nice affinity for purple.
I must because there's the Mage Asylum and then all the Zalanite Mates books. Yeah. Call Me Bunny, I got like a steal on the cover. It was like $40 for the cover, and I was like, I
Oh,
need
nice.
that. I need that. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I need it. I need it.
Have
But
you
it's
have you
already.
no, have you juggled 2 nowhere books yet? Have you written in the same universe with the juggling aspect?
I'm about to with the two
Okay.
co-writes that I'm doing this year, and also with the prequel. I've already started the two co-writes. I've kind of started the prequel a little bit.
Mhm.
So those are kind of going to be getting the tandem writing treatment as well. But with the co-write, you're handing off your chapter after you finish it to the other author. They
Mhm.
write their chapter or their character or whatever, however you decide to split it up, and then you bounce it back and forth.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you're working in their time frame as well as your own, so you kind of have to write other stuff in between, or else you
Yeah,
get stuck if you're
yeah,
just only doing the co-write because you're relying on them to finish their part until you can do your part.
yeah.
Um,
I had yeah, I had a conversation with a, traditionally published author who, was a member of the Big 5 publishing family, and what he was saying is how he writes is he writes one book out, and then he turns it in while that is being edited and sent to the editor. He immediately starts the next book and kind of writes it like that. And so there is that, when you have a lull, writing is how you fill the gap, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, and I don't like the lulls, so
yeah, I
a
can
lot of
imagine.
times I'll send it off to my mom and, let her do the edits, and I'll start on whatever, next on the docket. I have a spreadsheet as how OCD I am with all my deadlines and everything. So,
And I mean, all these deadlines are self-imposed for the most part.
for the most
So
part, I mean, there's some anthologies that I'm in that I have a deadline based
sure.
on what the anthology is and everything. But yeah, I do self-impose deadlines. I set up pre-orders on purpose because I I know if I don't, it's not gonna get done. I have to have a deadline of some sort. So
Yeah, it might be good. That's probably good advice for myself, and maybe I should try that. But um, yeah, I'm fascinated by the idea of I mean, you're just so prolific in the way you write, and everything that you've accomplished, literally in 2 3 years is absolutely amazing. And and so in writing the way you write now, are you ramping up your scheduling a little bit, or are you staying true to how you've published the way you've published the last few years?
It is picking up a little bit, but there's more anthology pieces, more novellas,
Hmm.
um, which take less time and effort to write for me anyway.
Sure,
Writing, I mean, it may not seem like much, 15, 30,000 words versus 50,000 or 60, 70,000, it's half and half or something, but it's mentally a very different process writing a novella versus writing a full-blown novel. And so, I mean, I've knocked out novellas in like a week or two before, and novels usually
hmm.
take me months. Um, so it's definitely a very different mindset. And so I think having um, maybe sprinkling novellas in with the novels will help me kind of break up the tedium, maybe, or
Hmm.
monotony.
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure the word to use there, but kind of, break it up so it's not all churning away one thing at a time. It's different, um, it's more variety for me, and my mind can bounce around and do, its thing.
Do you look at I mean, Call Me Bunny's probably a really good example of this because you had mentioned you didn't do any marketing for it. But were you concerned about that when you put it out there? Did you feel like you were going to put a marketing plan together for it, just to put it to because it is so different from what you had been writing
Yeah,
before?
I wasn't sure because the cover, even though it's a gorgeous cover, I was like, it looks a little bright for a dark romance, but people are
Hmm.
digging it, it seems. Um, so and I've just been using, I've been going with the brightness of the cover, using bright colors for my little graphics I make up for posting and commenting on people's request posts. People will say, "Oh, I'm looking for a dark romance with reverse harem." I'm like, "Boom! I got you. Here it is." And so that's kind of my marketing plan, which is not exactly the best one in the world, but it's doing okay so far. You know,
Here you go, everybody. There's the cover in
yeah.
its glory.
Crazy bunny. Crazy bunny.
I love that it has a baseball bat and a gun because
Right,
that
you
that's
gotta
just
have
how
options.
you have it. That's how it's gotta be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the questionnaire. I am curious for you in your process. Now you've written several series. Um, what when do you realize that you're going to be writing multiple books? Is it right away? Is it a certain point in the first book? Where do you feel like you're going to end up writing multiple books?
I usually know right away. With the Zelenite Mates, I planned 3 books right off the bat, with, thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, I love it. With, a lot of them, though, it's just a matter of what speaks to me.
Hmm.
The nowhere books kind of come bit by bit, like, as the story
Hmm.
comes to me, I'll write another one. Um, I can't ever say I'll be ever fully done with nowhere. It just depends on where the stories end up going. I mean, the Sunshine Rising might be the last one, or it might not be. I might
Hmm.
find another character who speaks to me and says, "Hey, I want my story told now." And there's plenty of room for that, room for growth. But from now on, they're going to be standalones. It's not going to be, the first 6 books I wrote in the Nowhere world were trilogies, And now
Yeah.
it's going to be more standalones and little tie-ins, things like that. And that's just, but nowhere is such a strange world to begin with. It's the structure of it is bizarre, and as far as the writing structure goes, anyway. You
Mhm.
know,
Have you looked at other ways to get your writing out there? Like, have you looked at Vella? Have you looked at audiobooks, things of that nature, to kind of put
I've
more out
l-
there?
I've looked at Vella. I don't think I write quite the right way for Vella because
Hmm.
I mean, Ream is a little more relaxed, not quite as structured.
Hmm.
Vella, I feel like I was originally going to write Feral Unbroken, which is my Ream book that's coming out on Ream
Hmm.
first. I originally was going to write that for Vella, but then I just realized that Vella is a world that I just don't think I mesh well with the
Mm.
structure of it. So I'm holding off on that for now. Audiobooks, unfortunately, I cannot afford to hire a narrator right now. And no one's approached me saying, "Oh, I love your books. Let me narrate them." That doesn't happen. Um,
Yeah.
and the royalty cut, I don't think I make enough from them to be fair to a narrator,
Hmm.
to do a royalty cut. Uh, Type of contract. So for now, there really aren't any audiobooks. It would be nice if I could. I know a lot of people I know personally who said, I wish I could read your book on the time. If you were in audiobooks, I would. So it is what it is. If someday I can afford to, that'd be great. If not, then there's no audiobooks. Sorry.
I mean, part of it too. You're at a point where your appeal is at its highest anyway, so it's kind of, or moving upwards, and so people are, like you mentioned earlier, probably gravitating more to your voice and finding your voice being the comfort zone for them as readers. Kind of, they like the way you write, so
Hmm.
that's what attracts them to grab the next book in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. Are you
Hmm.
kind of, is that kind of how you're feeling a little bit about that as well?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. People are starting to realize, the ones who are buying multiple books or reading multiple books on Kindle Unlimited are realizing, oh, hey, I dig this author's style. And I've had some reviews that have said, I love everything
Mhm.
so and so does, or this is my first book by this author. I can't wait to read more by her. So
Yeah.
and those kind of things make you feel good.
So do you have, so in your spreadsheet, in your OCD-ness, do you have a personal goal set for page reads and things of that nature for the actual accomplishment of the writing?
No, the spreadsheet is just to get it done. Just my own schedule, so to speak. So
So how do you feel about when you see the numbers you see? Is it a nice feeling because you aren't paying attention to it, or do you feel like you know there's is it validation? How is it that you feel about the numbers that you see?
there's definitely some validation. There's definitely a good feeling that comes when people are enjoying the work that you write.
Yeah,
Um, but I I try not to bank on it, because I don't know if the next book is going to do as well as the last one, or
yeah,
there's ups and downs. I mean, if you look at
sure.
my KU or my sales, I mean, it's like someone's having a major cardiac event with if you were to read it as an EKG, but
Yeah,
it is on upward slant. So.
yeah. Uh, okay, so brand new people to the Nowhere universe or to AJ Mulligan universe, where would you point them first? Where would you say they should go to first to kind of get
I
an idea of who you
I
are?
usually recommend they start with Packed with the Pack because that one is the first Nowhere book right now. Um, there will be, yeah, Upward Slant definitely what we're aiming for. There will be a prequel to Packed with the Pack,
Oh,
that
nice.
I've mentioned in novella. It's going to be coming out in an anthology, and then it will be a free reader magnet to let people enter the world But for right now, Pack with the Pack is the first one, and it is where it all starts. So I always tell people start there, unless they just really want to jump into the weirdness, and then Irresistible Monstrosities, that's one that has made a Marine blush.
Yes,
So
that is yeah.
yep.
That's one of those books. um, yeah, and I was just gonna mention, and I'll try to find it and put it in the description for everybody who's watching this. But deep in the bowels of a former life of Go Indie Now, where we used to do a show where we had the authors read, and we do a
Hmm.
little like visual element to the reading. There is a reading of Pack in one of
Hmm.
those
Yep.
episodes.
Yep. I
So
think you had me read the first chapter or something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it's the motorcycle chase in one of those books. That's what I remember about it.
Yeah.
Is
That's the motorcycle scene where she's trying to get away from the
yeah.
ex. Yep.
So yeah, so I'll try to find that. I mean, because you can go down that rabbit hole and it'll take you a while to find that. But
There you go. Yeah.
so I'll find it and post it for everybody if you've never seen it. For people who've never seen it to take a look, so that you can get an idea of how it reads and
Hmm.
what it's about.
Hmm.
So, all right, my friend, you ready to do the questionnaire?
Let's do the questionnaire.
All right. So we're about to do La Questionnaire, invented by the great Bernard Pivot and perfected by the one and only James Lipton on Inside the Actor Studio, and taken for my purposes to torture my guests and put them in the ringer a little bit. So, AJ, what is your favorite word to write?
Oh, no. It was PG-13. No. No.
no, no, it's not. You can say whatever you want.
I don't know that I have a favorite word to write. I'm sure someone could do a control F on my books and find whatever one's most common, and it probably is one that is not PG-13. But
Okay,
sorry, the kitten's playing.
that's fine. What is your least favorite word to write?
Oh, probably panties. That's just a terrible word. It's so old-fashioned.
Fair enough. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Creatively, a brand spanking new cover that's nice and shiny, and I have a whole blank page to write on.
Nice. That's awesome. So what turns you off?
Slugging through the middle part where it's a little slower. The slower parts take me longer.
All right. So everybody's favorite question, and I'm sure this is going to be very, 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 very interesting for you. And that is, what is your favorite curse word?
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that seems to be the popular one.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
I like the sound of the kitty cats. We have
Nice.
3 cats, and they're just when they're happy, I like to hear that.
What sound or noise do you dislike?
When they're too quiet and then you hear something break.
Fair enough. All right. So what character of yours would put their face on the currency of their world?
On the currency of their world. Well, that would have to be Kara from the Wolf's Dominion because she is the leader there. So her face would have to go on everything.
Nice. What other artistry would you love to try that you have not yet attempted?
Well, I'm actually in the SCA, hoping to learn metalworking here soon.
Oh, neat.
Etching and engraving and casting. That's
That's
something
awesome.
that's really interesting to me.
What artistry will you'll never do?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many artists avenues that you can do. It's kind of hard to say what one you wouldn't.
So you would be open to try them all.
Eh,
All
maybe.
right.
I can't think of any right now anyway.
Okay, fair enough. So, if heaven exists or whatever you believe exists beyond this world, what would you like to hear God say as you arrive?
Uh, well, you finally wrote everything you were going to write. because hopefully that'll be done by that time.
Well, true to form, I really hope that you have not written everything you need to write, because we would like to see you be here. Very, very. You know, you've been around with us for a while. You've done a lot of stuff. So I would really look forward to these conversations every time we get to do them. And you know, and I'm so proud of all you've accomplished, because you're one of the great success stories out there that we know of, and what you've done, and how you've progressed, and you know how prolific you've become, and you just keep on growing and doing the thing you're doing. So I hope there's thousands more of AJ Mullican left in you and out there, so that we can experience that and talk every time that happens. So thank you so much, my friend, for being here and doing this. It's been a real
Thank you for
pleasure to
having
talk
me.
to you. So tell everybody where they can find all these wonderful gold mines of yours, and check them out.
You can go to ajmullican.com. You can look through my little links and find me, find where I'm at online, ajmullican.com/author. You can find my books on Amazon. Search, surprise, surprise, AJ Mullican. And that's kind of where you can find me. AJ Mullican gets you to me most places you go.
Awesome. And you can find us right here, right? Every week we're trying to do more stuff. We've got more stuff coming. Tomorrow and the next day we have a new Zero Means You're Dead episode tomorrow, and some review shows and things in the works, and another This Week in Indies as well, where I'll be live from Park City, Utah this weekend. So that should be fun. Everybody come and hang out with us then, and thank you for joining us now, and remember that it's always time to go indie now.
Go Indy now.
We'll see you soon.